Alright, BobalosRex here. And for this lore rant, I'm going to be talking about the zones that... the zones in the story. And basically, I'm ranting about what we could see zone-wise in Midnight. I got storyline ideas, I got dungeon ideas, I got renown ideas, all that. Alright? And what's great is, we already know where it's at, so it's not like, let me make up X continent, X realm, you know, we know where we're going, you know, for the most part. They can add some new stuff, you know, and I got two little pages here. Oh, I didn't take a picture of my map. I'll go big mode and show it. It didn't come out the best. But yeah, I wanted to talk about the zones, because here we go. We are returning to Quel'thalas. Right. You know, most likely Sunwell Isle will also be used in a way. But I have a feeling this is going to be more of the raid area. Personally, I think Sunwell Isle is the raid. You know, we are going to get a Sunwell too. And while we're here, I want to get one thing clear. The way I imagine this going is the Eastern Kingdom now just transitions into this new area, and it's a seamless transition, right? I don't see them adding a new portal in EPL to get to this new Quel'thalas. What I'm hoping for, right, which I don't know if this is how it's going to go, to be fair, but what I'm hoping for is that it's a seamless transition. So now Eastern Kingdoms is one contiguous zone all the way up. And I do hope down the road we see Azure Mist Isles maybe integrated into Kalimdor. You know, that would be great. But let's continue talking about the zone here. So, the next part, I don't see them changing the shape of these zones. Alright? So, I can see them. Alright, we're going to look at the map here. I can see them changing the size of, say, Ghostlands. Maybe making it a little bit thicker. Right? But they're not going to change the shape of the continents for the most part, right? The areas that can change, there are two areas that can change on the continent, but the areas that we've been, aka Sunwell Isle, the Isle of Quel'thalas, is going to look like this, right? As far as, like, most likely it's going to look like this. Could it be a little thicker? Could it be bigger in size? Yes, but it's going to look like that. Now, these zones are going to look like this. Could Sunstrider Isle be bigger? You know, could we get a new Blood Elf starting area is what I was thinking. I don't know why I wanted to say that area's name, but I can see us maybe getting a new Blood Elf starting area. Alright, and then the ruins of Silvermoon and Silvermoon in general be enlarged, be flyable, and then Eversong Woods also most likely be enlarged. You know, we could see the zones be slightly enlarged, but I don't see shape. Alright, we're going to take a long flight here. Let's go to Tranquillian. So, I don't see the shape, but I can see the size enlarged. Now, I talked about would-be zones. Alright? I'm of the idea that we get these 4 zones. Now let me go over these 4 zones. First off, we're going to get Silvermoon. Silvermoon's going to be our capital. You know, I'm not one of the believers that are thinking it's going to be destroyed. I do think it's going to be our capital, but it's going to be attacked. And my idea of what the Blood Elves do to protect it is we activate those stones again. Our magic stones, we've seen magical barriers protect elves. Nightborn. Too, you know, they had their dome. You know, so we got Nightborn Dome. We got Blood Elves' own magical domes. We got the ethereal domes working against the void. I can very well see Silvermoon protect itself. But the Sunwell and the Isle of Quel'thalas most likely voided up. Alright. Then we got the Ghostlands, right? So Silvermoon Capital, Eversong Woods, questing area, where we're basically getting a lay of the land, right? Reassessing all these areas. What's going on with Torwatha? What's going on at Duskwither Spire, Farstrider Retreat, East Sanctum, the Dead Scar, West Sanctum? What's going on? What have the Blood Elves been doing? Is the Scorched Grove recovering? You know, what's going on with the Murlocs over here? I'm thinking maybe we could get some Naga storylines. Maybe the Naga pull up to help the Blood Elves, like they've done in the past. Alright. Now, they did it for their own reasons, but Blood Elves and Nagas have worked before together, so I think that'd be cool. Be a way to get a Shara in, maybe on our side. Alright. I want to see maybe the Nightborn. I was thinking the Nightborn could maybe have a new little area. Maybe make their own little area near Silvermoon. Or maybe they have their own little area in Silvermoon. I always hit the wrong thing. Or over here. You know, it'd be good to catch up with the Farstriders. Now, what I was thinking for the ruins of Silvermoon, right? I was still thinking this area may be the ruins. Maybe this is like, there's more withered. And I was imagining maybe they have a whole withered dungeon. Alright, maybe 2 withered dungeons. Maybe there's like an upper one and then crypts, the Silvermoon crypts or catacombs kind of dealio. Like, does the Silvermoon have like an undercroft or something? So I was thinking for that. Or, like I said, maybe the Naga are aggressors and you can have a Naga dungeon, a Naga assault, or something like that. Because I was trying to think of like 2 dungeons here. You know, I kind of want to put a lot of them here, or maybe along the Dread Scar. Because, in my opinion, and I mentioned the Naga here, so one of the big things I talked about in the last video, because this is a continuation of that, basically, is the Elves uniting. So I can imagine the Naga coming in too. Maybe on our side now. I'm thinking maybe Ashara could show up. We could have Sylvanas show up. I was even hitting the crazy idea, like, yo, if Sylvanas shows up, she could bring Quel'thalas. I'm not a fan of Quel'thalas, but I feel like not many people would complain if Quel'thalas showed up with Sylvanas. If they bring Sylvanas back, they could bring Quel'thalas. Some people in the city would be mad at him. He'd be in the... He's just showing up because he's sorry, right? He immediately shows up, yeah, like, yo, I am still in getting my recompense, right? I'm just pulling up to help, you know? I'm just pulling up to help, right? To make up for what I did. That would be interesting. Do I think that's likely? No, but if you have one character coming from the Shadowlands back, what's to say? And of course, I want to see the Void Elves get back together, but maybe they're a part of some of the reason. But I also see the Night Elves maybe helping out. And we're going to talk more about that in some of the later zones. But I really do want to see upgrades to this zone, but also this zone would be the one that I think where you can integrate the stuff. So what would we be doing in Silvermoon, right? So Silvermoon would be the main hub. So we've seen, one of the things I needed to take away when I was getting some of the stuff ready here is if we look at like Kazalgar, right? Zone, hub, event, couple of delves, 2 dungeons. Okay, so I wanted to set up my zones like that. Do the zones have to follow that? No. But I'm going to follow that setup. So I'm going to have an event with each zone, a hub in each zone, a couple of dungeon ideas, and of course, I'm not going to have really delve ideas because delves could be all sorts of stuff. And honestly, I do hope they bring back delves and stuff. I can't wait to see what they do with delves, but that's its own thing. But again, we look at Ringing Depths, hub, little event thingy, you know, delves, 2 dungeons. Hollowfall, event thingy. In Hollowfall, it's the spreading the light. And then you got the hub in Moreldar. Ashka Head, hub. Some kind of event stuff to get rep in a weekly box. You know, so I'm designing my zones using that setup. So we've talked about what I would want to see done in the zone. But let's talk about, like, what would the story of the Silvermoon Eversong Forest zone be? Right, so basically, whatever the big explosion, void stuff, Sunwell void, all that, Silvermoon is reeling, but Silvermoon still stands. And we get the barriers up, and it's like, but the night sky is all purple across all the 4 zones we're in. And it's like, yo, we gotta get the people together, and we gotta retake Sunwell Island. It's gonna take all hands on deck. Alright? This area is gonna be, well, all the elves, all the forces are gonna be getting together. The main city gonna be about reinforcing, supplying, and preparing to take the Sunwell. So that's why I'd want to see, you know, Nightborn. You know, if the Naga are going to show up on our side, they're going to be here. You know, would we see the return of Sylvanas at this point, early on? And whoever else. That would be then. You know, of course we'd have the Horde pulling up, the Alliance pulling up, and even the Void Elves, but I'm putting the Void Elves somewhere else, especially if they're involved. But any good ones we'll still take, right? Because the initial of this, in my storyline, even, is most of the Void Elves wouldn't be about this. It's Xal'atath, right? She's the one orchestrating this big thing. But she would have used a Void Elf. Alright? So, all the elves, all the forces, this is the zone where it's like, we gotta get it together, we gotta do this. But one of the events I had for this is maybe you have like a banquet or something, you know, or some kind of supply. Maybe you could do the spreading the light thing here, where it's like reinforce the barrier, do world quests in this zone, turn it in, because this is going to be the main one for all that. I'm imagining maybe a new starter zone for Blood Elves that take into effect what's going on, and they get to do a bunch of stuff just on Sunstrider Island, and then when they get moved off, they get put into the city proper. The Ruins of Silvermoon, like I said, I want to put both dungeons into the Ruins of Silvermoon, maybe have like an under and an upper part with Withered and maybe other things going on in the depths. Maybe bring back some of the Fell Elves. So maybe they're getting to some Fell magic down there. So that would be cool. So that's my idea, Eversong, you know. But of course, I think what they're probably going to do is going to be great. I'm so excited for this expansion. But that's kind of my ideas. You know, we'll see if some of that comes true. Now, let's move into the Ghostlands, which is funny because part of this zone I'm going to cut off. Alright? But we'll come back to that later. So let's look at the major part of Ghostlands. So the main city of Ghostlands, of course, I want to bring back Tranquillian. Right? Dude. This was the first, well, the first rep I got exalted on this tune. Right here. Where is it? Where is it? Where would it be? All I know is I'm fully exalted with Tranquillian, and I remember doing this rep. Oh, it'd be here. Yeah. I remember doing this rep. This was so cool as a Blood Elf to have this whole rep that you get to do in your, like, second area. Right? I don't know about y'all, but if you've done this as a Blood Elf, I thought it was so cool. You'd head in here, get this rep. So, I 100%... Where's the vendor? I 100% want to see this as a full-fledged city hub. Maybe you have... Oh, there they are. Look at that. I can buy all this mog. But yeah, I for sure want to see Tranquillian used as the hub in the Ghostlands. And I do want to see the Ghostlands be somewhat maybe brightening up, but also still have this air of the Dead Scar and Death Home. So what would we be doing in the new hub of Tranquillian? Well, one, it'd be built up. And in the Ghostlands, I'd want to see... In the next few zones, I want to talk about major characters. So, in the Ghostlands, I want to see Lady Leodrin, Salandria, and a lot of the Blood Knights and the Far Striders, right? A lot of Blood Knights here, maybe, and then the Far Strider Enclave. I want to see them basically be retaking most of the Ghostlands. And you want to know another spot that I think will be interesting. If y'all don't remember, there was a Night Elf camp over here. So if the Night Elves are actually our allies, they can be set up over here where they were. Be like, alright, so y'all are back. We'll leave y'all there. You can stay there. You help fight the Scourge, right? We have cities retaken. I want to see all this retaken for the most part. And a big thing, right, will be that this part of the Ghostlands, of course, will be ceded to Zul'Aman, right? I want that to be more of the end of the questline. So we'd head from Eversong Woods, doing all the stuff, reinforcing the Ghostlands story, right, as it heads into the Zul'Aman story, which honestly... This is a zone where I think they can expand this, because here's the thing. I think this whole other zone here should be Zul'Aman, or a Zul'Aman zone, and Zul'Aman be the city. So, in my idea of the Ghostlands, it's more of this and Thas'Doral Pass, and less of actual Zul'Aman. Okay? And the Ghostlands be about cleaning up the Scourge presence. You know, you have the Renown of Tranquillian. You know, maybe have it, maybe a new name. But you're building it up, you're brightening up the Ghostlands, and one of the big couple of dungeons we have here, Windrunner Spire. Still haunted. Even after Sylvanas left, it's almost as if another force has been attracted there. And then another dungeon, of course, Death Home. Right? But we could also have another dungeon or delve be a part of the Troll Ruins or the Troll Catacombs in this area over here. You know, I always thought that area was cool when I was doing the Blood Elf area. But I think the two biggest areas that could serve as dungeons for the zone would be Death Home, of course, and Windrunner Spire. Now, if y'all remember the Void Elf Unlock quest, they had a camp up there. I think it was at Dawnstar Spire, but they also had some... no, it was at Dawnstar Spire. So the Void Elves would be holed up there. So we could have all the different forces of elves. So, shoot. Night elves over here. Void elves over here. Naga over here if they show up. Maybe give the Haranir the Grove. Right? Nightborn over here. Right? The more closer the Blood Elf allies, the closer here. And then those ones here. But we're all working together. And the Ghostlands story would be more about cleaning up the remnants of the Scourge so we can focus, right? So we can make sure we have all of our allies and clean up this road, okay? This road leading to more of our allies, right? Because we want to basically have a full front, a full force to retake the Sunwall, Alliance and Horde. And we're gathering all our allies, and the Ghostlands and the Scourge is going to get settled in this expansion. And we have Darkon Drakithir as like a full dungeon boss. Give him a full dungeon boss. Make him come back and be like, you thought you took me out, you little blood elf? I'm a lich now. I think that'd be cool. So, these two is dungeons. This is going to be its whole zone that I'm going to talk about now. And then we're going to talk about the zone. Because look at this, Ghostlands. Right? So it goes there and it stops. Right? So let's talk about my two new zones. So we talked about Eversong Forest. We talked about Ghostlands and its renown. Oh, I didn't talk about what you do for its renown. So, the main event in Ghostlands, I'm thinking similar to Awaken the Machine, but it's zombie waves. Survive zombie waves of Death Home on the Dead Scar, and then you get your weekly chest. Alright? Tranquilin be a standard rep, you know, unlock your treasures, unlock the event, unlock the goodies, you know, profession stuff, etc., etc., right? Now, for some of the other reps, man, I really like Tranquilin as a thing, but maybe it would need gussing up like the Tranquilin Alliance or something like this to give it more pizzazz. Or it could just be like very mage heavy, mage and paladin. Or yeah, it's a combination of the Farstriders and Tranquilin, and it's something. You know, and I talked about it last, but for Silvermoon, the renown, the big renown of the main city, would be about the Elven Alliance force. And I kind of talked about it in the last video, but it's like, I really like this idea of the Blood Elf Sun iconography with the Night Elf Moon. If we are going to have this Elves reunite, and it's Blood Elves and Night Elves teaming up after so many years of beefs, me knowing it as a Blood Elf main, teaming up, I want to see this cool Moon and Sun. We've been waiting for this, right? We've been waiting for this cool Moon and Sun. But you see, here, look. Well, we'll come back to this. So, Moon and Sun, Silvermoon Covenant, the Moon and Sun Covenant. I couldn't think of a better name, but I want to see some cool order or alliance, not alliance, but like some fancy name for the big elf unity pact, right? Maybe have all the elves in it. So you have Blood Elf, Sun, Night Elf Moon, Nightborn, maybe have like timey things going on. Void Elves. And if the Naga are part of it, you know, Ashara's back. You know, I still think she may try to go for an elf throne, but she could be on our side. Or be on the enemy side. You know, and we'll have to see. She can really go both ways there. But now let's get on to the two zones that I'm making up, right? I've talked about what I want to see in the two zones that we pretty much know are going to be in it, right? They got to have a Ghostlands, or at least this area is going to be included, right? And of course, they're going to have Eversong Woods. That's literally the main zone. So what about these other zones I came up with? So first, let's talk about Zul'Aman. I'm actually becoming a big fan of my idea for Zul'Aman. So, of course, the main hub of the Amani zone. My idea for a name is just Amani Wilderness or the Amani Forest or something simple. I can't be creative, but I'm sure some people can come up with a better name. But it basically Zul'Aman the zone, right? And of course the hub city would be Zul'Aman itself. And I would want it to look like this, right? And in this renown, I wanted it to be just Horde. And in my last video, I made it so it was just Horde. And it could be just Horde. But I was really struggling with, like, would Blizzard do that? Then I was thinking, like, oh, it'd be cool if at the end of the renown, you unlock the ability for your alliance to do it. And then I was like, no, Blizzard would just want it to be neutral, right? I feel. I mean, we could have factional ones maybe later, but I feel like this one should just end up being neutral, so it's not a whole zone that the alliance don't get to participate in. And that actually gave me some interesting story. We'll get to that in a second. But how do you get the Amani, which are technically aligned with the Horde in a way, through the Zandalari, to work with anybody? Well, the new leader is a little bit chill. Talanji has come over. We are questing with Talanji. The main brunt of this quest line is Talanji coming here trying to bring the Amani fully into the fold to fight the Void, because the Amani do actually want to fight the Void. They've been actually helping us in the Ghostlands, which would lead us here to the zone, fighting the Void. They want to fight the Void, but they still don't like us, right? I even have a dungeon in here where you fight Blood Elves that are trying to take some Amani land, and we support the Amani kicking them back out. Because the Blood Elves have seceded, or it's not, to be fair, it wasn't their territory to begin with, but the Blood Elves have stopped trying to move in. The Blood Elves have just been about recovering their city, and there's been, like, in the storyline I want to see, there's been, like, a cease of hostilities for the most part. But they're still not allies, right? So Talanji's coming over here and is like, yo, how can we help you, Amani, to get you fully behind us and maybe pull you in to the Horde? I want that to be a part of this. I want Rokon here, and maybe even Gayara over here with the Horde. I want this Horde-centric, but Alliance players will do it because we all need to get on board. So when the end of this quest line, either we get Amani unlocked allied race for the Horde, or we get Amani customizations. But they are working with everyone who is fighting the Void. So it could be a neutral story in that way. And it's because the player character is going to be helping the Loa. So I want a big deal of the Amani thing to be us helping the 4 Loa that we fought. Akizan, Halazi, Janalai, and Nalarak, right? I want us to be helping the Loa. Kind of like the spider packs. You do offerings for the Loa each week. You unlock stuff. I want to see mounts, pets, a full renown tree with unlocks. And that could kind of be its event, right? Do your Loa offering for the week. Get your chests. I was also thinking maybe they could do a musical event. Maybe for the Amani if they wanted to. But I really like the idea of the Loa offerings. And that to be the main brunt of the story of us supporting the Amani, recovering from what happened to them, making sure that they have their land, and helping their Loa. So we're all ready to fight the Void, right? So we bring them in to help us fight the Void, right? And one of the other dungeons in here, I already mentioned the one, but one of the other dungeons in here, I want to see be like this underforest area where Kithix is a boss. Pretty sure I picked the right one. And maybe we find out the dark forest that Malacras used in the beginning, if they want to pull up that storyline. But I would really like to see this cool, like, underforest, like, rotten area. And we gotta fight back Kithix. I had something else. I had something else. Where was it? Here? Oh! And there'd be Zul loyalists there too. We'd find out that there were maybe some blood trolls, some other Amani Zul loyalists hiding out in this underforest. So it'd be a little bit of the blood troll stuff, but Amani style. And have this, like, instead of underrot, underforest kind of style. I think it would be cool. That was my idea. Of course there could be many more, but I think that'd be really cool to fight Kithix. It would be very reminiscent of BFA stuff, but I would really like to see Talanji in them. Now, I did say I wanted to make this neutral. So I would need an alliance envoy. Now, this neutrality also helps the other zone, right? Now, some people are going to be against this. At first, I wanted full Horde Zul'Aman Renown, but I thought about it, right? I really thought about it, right? We're uniting the scattered elven tribes. What elf gets along? I was like, what person on the alliance can get along with the Amani? What elf fits mostly with Amani? Night elf. Night elf. I was like, wait a minute. Trolls that want to protect their forest and are very protective of their forest. A little xenophobic, but the trolls had reason. Alright, let's be fair. The trolls had reason. The night elves. Xenophobic forest protectors. Like, oh my god. It's all there. So I think it would be really cool to have Chandris, the new leader of the Night Elves, work with Talanji, Rokon, maybe Giara, and get the Amani on our side. Chandris literally appeals to the Amani. I protect tree too. Maybe give the Amani a world tree over here. You know, there's a lot of land. Alright, it feels really bad that the hinterlands, like, honestly, the fact that the top of the hinterlands and all this stuff does not connect to Zul'Aman is, like, criminal. But I want to see a tree up there. Maybe a more natural tree to Azeroth versus some of the others planted by other people, the Night Elves. But yeah, I would love to see. I think that with that neutrality clause on there, bringing Chandris, Night Elves over would be very interesting. But I would love to see a full Zul'Aman zone. I really hope we get a full Zul'Aman zone working with the Amani. If we are literally fighting the Amani, I'm mad. That is going to hurt my midnight experience 100%. There can be some bad Amani, but the whole Zul'Aman zone, the renown should be the Amani. Now, yeah, look at Death Home. It's bad. It's salty. Now, for the next zone, I kind of want to take us out of this area and talk more about the border land. But, dang, I spent so much time on Zul'Aman. Zul'Aman is very important to me, personally. I know to a lot of people, too, but I really hope they do it good. And this is coming from a Blood Elf who had to fight him, but I'm like, yo, they kind of right, though. Like, even as I was fighting, I'm like, yo, I'm doing the Blood Elf quest, but they kind of right. So, not the Blood Elves, the Amani. But, so, for the next zone, I was really taking a look at what I've shown. Damn it. The top area here, the border between Eastern Plaguelands and Quel'thalas, I think can be expanded into a full zone. Because here's the thing. We go through this pass and it's like, yeah, it's this whole big thing. Right? But realistically, there should be a lot of space here. And I don't know if y'all been flying around like the border. Like here, look at all this space in between this pass, right? I am imagining, one, them expanding Zul'Aman and stuff down over to here, all up over to here, all up into that, right? So that's all Zul'Aman wilderness. Maybe make it fatter, right? Boom. So boom, longer, boom, thicker, boom, bump out there, and then this area right here, yo, in my idea, this shit expands for sure. Alright, let's get through the portal here where we can fly. Because here's the thing. I don't think anyone's going to have a problem with the OG map expanding, right? Again, when I talk about shape of stuff, I'm mainly talking about the shape of zones that we have been in, right? So Ghostlands, Sunstrider Isle, and the Isle of Quel'thalas, Eversong Woods and stuff, they kind of need a look-alike, right? But when we're talking about over here, look at this. Look at all that space up there. Look at Stratholme. So for my fourth and final zone, right, if we're sticking to the 4 zones, would basically be this area up here. Right, that would include the ruins of Stratholme. An area I'm calling Northwood. You know, basically the Northern Plaguelands, right? So all the area up here. Right? You really cannot just, like, get anywhere up here. It's crazy. The wall is crazy. And here's the thing. This wall needs to come down. Look at this wall. Look, I can't even... Look! It's just all cut off. And it's, like, right here. It's like, why can't we fly there, Blizzard? Well, we're finally gonna get there. So, let's talk about that zone. Talked about Zul'Aman, talked about the lower offerings, talked about Ghostlands, talked about that, talked about everything. So now, we got Northwood. I'm just calling it Northwood, but it's Northern Plaguelands. Alright, there we go. We'll call it Northern Plaguelands for all intensive purpose, okay? So, Northern Plaguelands, what it will consist of in my ideal setting. Right, now here, I'll actually show my freaking map. Look at this thing. So, we got this area. So, we basically got Silvermoon, Sunstrider Isle, Isle of Quel'thalas, and then Ghostlands more centered. And then out this way, Zul'Aman. Out this way, Northwood. Alright? And I set up all the people, and that. So, what would be going on up here in Northwood? Or Northern Plaguelands? Right? Well, when it wasn't neutral, I thought of it as maybe Alliance are using North Stratholme, you know, Stratholme refugees. You could basically have a new Stratholme, basically, forming way north of the city of refugees, and have Alliance, have Anduin, Farron, and them, Theron, and then maybe even Daneth, be helping out the people there, right? And we can call this New Stratholme, and they're basically, they scavenge Stratholme amongst the Scourge. That's kind of what the event I was thinking of, like city reclamation, like a salvaging event. You go into the city, get a bunch of stuff, and then bring it back to New Stratholme. And when it wasn't neutral, I had it all be humans. Or I had it all be humans alliance, right? But then I was like, neutral. Wait a minute. What if we brought in the Argent Dawn? What if we brought in Forsaken that also want to rebuild Stratholme? We could see an Alliance and Forsaken city pop up in Northern Plaguelands, right? Now, I know someone else just made a video talking about housing, it's Discordian Kitty, talking about humans and Forsaken get together, which is funny that I also, you know, that gave me this idea like, yo, we can have this in-game in this area. Right here. So, yes, we go to Northwood, Alliance and Horde, Anduin, Kalia, Lover Hater, Lillian Voss, Daneth, and we're like, yo, we're gonna help these human and Forsaken joint city of New Stratholme build up. We go scavenging into Stratholme to get supplies. We have a new Stratholme dungeon. You know, remnants of the Cult of the Damned. Right? Or maybe the Red Dawn has taken hold up in parts of Stratholme as well. Right? Or another area in this spot. Maybe we have a new Scarlet area in this spot. Right? So there's a lot of possibilities in this area. And then another dungeon I was thinking about in this area is you can have like maybe a crypt or like a tomb area with Cult of the Damned. So you'd have one dungeon where you're fighting the Red Dawn or Scarlets or both, because the Scarlet Crusade is, some members have joined the Red Dawn with the one lady, I can't remember her name. But yeah, her, and then the other dungeon be more crypty, or like a forest. I was thinking maybe it could be like a deep forest like type dungeon or swamp type dungeon. But yeah, that has been my ideas for the zones. I know I kind of dragged on a bit there, but that's my lore rant. But I do really think this idea of a human Forsaken city in this like North Plaguewood or North Plaguelands could be cool. Then you have, like I said, some alliance working with the Amani. Think about it. Night Elves and Amani have a lot in common. They really do. And I definitely want to see a full Zul'Aman zone, Amani. So yeah, we basically just, we have these two stay the same shape, right? Push them up a bit. Right? Or, let's be real. This doesn't perfectly fit the size here. Like, so we just adjust this zone here. We adjust this. We adjust this, right? We basically thicken up this zone here into North Plaguewoods, North Plaguelands. This into the Amani Wilderness. This is Ghostlands proper, just this area here, where you cut the line here. And then there's Eversong, and then, of course, the Sunwell. And that's it. That's my theories for the zones. Maybe you like them, maybe you don't. You may have your own theories. Whether or not Blizzard does my stuff, I'm probably going to like Midnight. I don't really think they can mess up Zul'Aman. The main thing I'm kind of worried about, I really don't want it to be another portal. I really, 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 really hope that it's just a smooth transition from Eastern Kingdoms, finally, after so long. Alright? And then when I was talking about, real quick, I was talking about if the Blood Elves get a new starter area, and we do have some Draenei stuff, then yeah, they could get a new starter area. We could see Goblins get a new starter area with Undermine. Maybe some other races start to get new starter areas. That could be cool too. You know, you can still do the original, you can do the island, or you could do new thing. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the zones. Hope you enjoyed. My big theory was that frickin' night elves working with the trolls. It'll be crazy. I want to make sure I didn't miss anything. I really want to see the Amani work with us to fight the Void. And to win Kalia, Argent Dawn. We could see Undead Paladins. Want to see that. We could see Dreadlords popping up. Especially if they do decide to bring back Quel'thalas. That would have a Venthyr representative here. Of course, Denathrius could be involved. But I do think this first part and the main thing is going to be the Void. And then we can maybe transition into the Light. Now, it will be interesting, right? So we'll get these 4 zones or whatever we get. And then what could be next? Do we see them redo zones in here as patch zones? Or do we still see them add, now we're going underground? Or now we're going into space? You know? Are we going to see portals? Are we going to see holes? Are we going to go back to other places? It'll be very interesting to see a patch zone in Midnight once we start getting there. But that's it for now. Thank y'all for listening. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.